One day when there is a Mount Rushmore of the Big Ten, her face will definitely be on it.
She's just an incredible woman who has meant so much to our program and to the Michigan community.
Diane Dietz, what comes to mind? Well, I think of a person that, grew up with and very proud of.
Fun, dependable.
Sister first, of course.
Diane Dietz is like the Renaissance woman.
What a great competitor she was, what a great athlete. She was good at whatever she did.
We just had the most perfect childhood, and I know that sounds a little cheesy to say that, but we were in a new neighborhood, one of the first houses built in that neighborhood, in the St. Hugo Parish, so we were walking distance to our church and our school. And as each new house went up, it was filled with families, and every one of those families had anywhere from 4 to 10 kids. And on these two little blocks, there were 250 kids. And none of the parents wanted the kids in the house. So we were outside all day, every day. And all that time in the backyard, we just played games. We made a lot of them up. It wasn't softball and volleyball, the girls' sports that came along later. It was football and baseball, and it was basketball, and then it was roof ball or tennis racket ball. At one point, we designed our own golf course in the backyard. It was a new neighborhood, so a lot of little saplings, and we made the whole scorecard. We drew the holes, and we had 9. We'd go out there with our little pitching wedge and real golf balls. We didn't take out any windows that I recall, and we played 9 holes of golf. I loved all sports. I really did. So I guess first organized where I had to go to practice was tennis and golf, because you could do that at 8 as a girl. Everything else was pickup games in the backyard.
My dad put a basketball slab out there with a couple of baskets on it, and there were mostly young boys. There weren't a lot of the girls weren't coming around looking to play, but she especially was there. So, I'd try to make a point to throw her in or pull her in on my team, and so lots of times she was better than the boys.
I think the first organized sport for me was basketball. In 6th grade, it was still 6-on-6. At that time, it was 1972. I was surprised to learn that Title IX passed in 1972, because in 1972 I was 12. And there's no 12-year-old that I knew that knew anything about Title IX or was tracking on that. But I did, in looking back, understand that basketball was available for me in 6th grade. And then in 7th grade, they started a softball team. And when I got to high school, I got to play basketball and softball, and for the first time in my life, volleyball. And Mercy also had a tennis team and a track team, and it's an all-girls school, so the gym is available to us, year-round, all day long. And I didn't understand at the time that that's not how it used to be. It wasn't until I got to law school, honestly, when I was taking a constitutional law class, reading about Title IX, that I went back and found some articles that my mother had kept that talked about the fight, all the people who fought so hard before I got there to make that happen. And that's when I realized what a time, like how lucky, honestly, that I came along at that time, 5 years earlier, maybe even 2 years earlier. Just wouldn't have had those opportunities, or I wouldn't have gotten them until later in life. Freshman year, I came in, met a bunch of girls I'd never met before. They were all great athletes from wherever they grew up, and we put a team together. We played JV our first year, and at the end of the JV season, 3 freshmen were called up to varsity, and we went on that run to the state final championship game. That freshman year, we lost by 1 point in the championship game, and I got to play in that game too. But my earliest memory at Mercy, the next year we got a new coach, Larry Baker.
She really stood out during those tryouts, and of course she made the varsity team, so that's how I got to know her.
I remember in late August when we were doing some, maybe preseason tryouts, I was also playing in the interclub championships for our tennis team. And he came up to me one day and said, "If you quit tennis, you will start on the varsity this year." And that's the day I quit tennis.
She was fearless. She was really able to create her own shot, take it to the basket, excellent defensive player.
Freshman year, we get to the state finals. Sophomore year, we get to the state finals. The first year we lost by 1 point. The next year we lost by 4 points. Junior year, I think we were undefeated our junior year too until the state championship game. Maybe we lost one other game, and we get crushed. We get crushed by Marquette. But all the same girls were coming back the next year.
Ugh, it was great. This place was rocking for those games.
I just remember just packed stands and sort of the pressure that they had lost it 3 years prior. So her freshman year, her sophomore year, her junior year, and then they got to the state championship again. And so there was this pressure and just desire to win it her senior year.
And they were up 12 or 14 points, and that, I don't know what happened. I know we put the press on, and applied a lot of pressure, and somehow came back and won that game.
It's such a great feeling, it's just, and feeling like just so happy for them. And she was just super excited. I remember her being really happy.
It probably meant more because it was such a struggle to get it. And we had I had been playing with those same teammates, for 2-3 years, some of them. And it was really unexpected and really amazing. As we were wrapping up our high school careers, academically and athletically, I started to get letters in the mail from around the country saying that there was financial aid available for women to play basketball in college. And it's the first I really heard of it. Nobody was sending letters offering a volleyball scholarship or a softball scholarship. They didn't exist. In addition to being an incredible institution, it was in my backyard. So Michigan was a no-brainer for me the day I got the letter. I just loved going to practice every day. I loved the game. I loved my teammates. And you truly are not thinking about how many points you scored in any game, or how many rebounds, or how many steals, or how many assists. You look at those at halftime to make an adjustment, and then it's forgotten.
I just think her ability to score the basketball, when you have someone prolific that could score in so many ways, is so dynamic, and she was just a dynamic guard. To have the points that she had and to impact the game that she did is really, really special.
Diane did benefit from the three-point rule at all. She had to do all of her scoring at the free throw line or with the two-point shots. It seems like she was a scoring machine.
She could steal the ball, she could pass the ball, she could score the ball, she would rebound the ball. She's very athletic.
Anytime you're in the 1,000-point club, it's amazing, but when you're in a 2,000-point club, it's spectacular.
Who knew that that was going to be a record, or that it would stand for so long, any of the records? You were just playing as hard as you could. None of that happens without a teammate. No one gets a shot without a screen. I mean, it's just, I don't even know how it ended up being over 2,000 points. Right after law school, I had been out about 2 to 3 years. I was working in an insurance defense firm, litigating, and I was dating someone at the time who played pickup basketball games in a lawyer's league. And he thought it would be really funny if he brought his girlfriend to the gym one night because, of course, no one would expect that I would be able to keep up with them. I wasn't sure I wanted to go along with that adventure, but I did. And as fate would have it, there was another lawyer there, probably 10 to 15 years older than me, who brought 4 children with him.
My biological mother was suffering from cancer and was on the verge of passing away. And my dad would take us to the local gymnasium on Thursday nights just to give her a break. And so my dad was playing pickup basketball, and Diane was there and draining shots in my dad's face and generally dominating the game. But during breaks, we would play games on the side, free throw contests, tag, hide and seek. There was my younger siblings and I, but there were also some other kids there, and Diane was kind of the ringleader of it all.
I just introduced myself. I played with them in between games. Happened 2 or 3 more weeks in a row, and then I got a call from their dad, who didn't know me. He got my phone number from my boyfriend, and he introduced himself. He said, "I'm the guy with the 4 kids," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm in love with your kids. They have they all had Irish Gaelic names: Aidan, Kieran, Fiona, and Patrick." And he was quiet, and he said, I was bringing them to the gym because their mother's been very sick. She was diagnosed with cancer and had lost her battle. And the funeral was coming up. And he said to me, my 4 children keep asking if that girl from the gym is going to be at their mom's funeral. So at the time I was the girl from the gym and they were those 4 Cleary kids. And I said, of course. Afterwards, I said to him, do you need any help with the kids back at the house? He said, that'd be great. So I went back to the house. He hosted his family and his wife's family and their friends, and I stayed down in the basement with those 4 kids.
Diane approached my father shortly after my mother's funeral and asked if he needed any help around the house with babysitting and things like that. First it was once a month maybe, and then it grew to once a week, and then eventually it was a matter of Diane taking us to our practices and our games, to scheduling our doctor visits, helping us with our homework and things like that. It just kind of organically grew out of one act of love to another, and our relationship evolved over time.
She took these kids in like every weekend to her little condo. She had this little condo, and she'd bring them over and they'd do sports together and play basketball, and she helped raise them. She was doing the whole mom thing for these kids. She just fell in love with them, and that was that.
She was picking me up from basketball practice one day, and I was playing with 4 or 5 friends, and we were just messing around, and she said, Aiden, it's time to go. But I ignored her, and I just kept playing with my friends. She was there in a business suit and high heels. At some point, the ball careens off the rim, off of one of my buddy's hands, and makes its way towards half court where Diane is standing. She picks up the basketball in her full suit, throws up a shot, drains it all net, and she turns, looks at me, and said, I said, let's go. So I did.
They've been such a blessing to me. We didn't know then, right, that it was going to be a 30-year adventure. His dad, a few years after his wife passed away, dated. I was dating somebody. We never dated each other. We just co-parented these kids for 30 years. It was meant to be. We were put in each other's path and stayed there.
Many of my family members, including my siblings and I, believe that God sent an angel to watch over us in our darkest hour, and that angel's name is Diane Dietz. You couldn't ask for a better role model or a better mother on earth.
I worked at Comcast for 15 years, but the first 12 were in Michigan. So I was in Philadelphia from 2005 to 2008. It was hard to come back. I didn't know what I was going to do next. Someone from the University of Michigan Alumni Association called me and asked if I would come and sit down with Tom Brokaw. And when I went to do that, I met the head of the Alumni Association, and she asked me what I was doing. I said, I'm taking a year to figure out what's next. And she said, well, send me your resume. You should be in the U of M database. I said, that's a great idea. She looks at my resume and she sees the cable television background and the legal background. She says, do you know Mark Silverman? She said, well, you need to meet him. He got his master's from Michigan, and he likes to help U of M grads look for opportunities where he can. So I did call him, and we did meet, and within a half hour of us telling war stories, he said, you need to meet Jim Delaney. He thinks college sports is going to change and grow exponentially over the next couple of years, and he's always talked about having someone like you at the Big Ten Conference.
I heard about Diane Dietz from Mark Silverman. Mark is a former president of the Big Ten Network. In my mind's eye, I'd been looking for somebody like Diane for a long time. I thought she was cross-trained. Not only was she a former student athlete, but she was trained as a lawyer. She had been involved in crisis management. She had worked at the regional level as well as at the national level, and she had a great appreciation for college sports.
When I first sat down with Jim and his senior staff, I didn't understand how college athletics worked. I didn't know a college athletic administrator. I played college sports, and I couldn't soak it up fast enough. I wanted to know everything and everybody because I had something personal to relate it to. It just fit like a glove. It's like, oh my goodness, I now understand so much better the mountains that people moved so that I could have a college athletic experience. And I wanted to do it for the student athletes that were in college now.
She's got a great sense of design, great sense of brand, and that was apparent to me pretty early on. I learned to appreciate her more as I worked with her more. And it wasn't long before, I promoted her to deputy for all things external.
When you think about all the important issues that she had to deal with Commissioner Delaney during her time here that are really complex.
It wasn't long before people would say, well, what's Diane think about this? Or how we might approach this. Coaches would say this in coaches' meetings. Does Diane have anything for us to be thinking about going into our media days? Does Diane have any advice for us?
We have Big Ten meetings, and the first person that I would look for is her at any of those meetings, and try to sit next to her at the dinner table so I could pick her brain and learn so much. That's a pretty prestigious thing, to be in the Big Ten office, to be surrounded as a female, as a woman, to be at the table with so many powerful men. To have a seat at that table is really important, and she has done that and laid that opportunity for a lot of us to follow.
She was a trusted advisor to Jim, and fortunately, she was a trusted advisor to me. Coming into a new job, especially during a challenging time in COVID, it was good to have her as an advisor to someone who had been there for Commissioner Delaney. I mean, she's a walking encyclopedia when it comes to Big Ten.
The highest award that you can receive in our basketball program, we have named after her, just because how she has established herself, obviously on the court as one of the greatest players to ever put on the Michigan uniform, but also in the community. And that award recognizes a kid who personifies all of that. A player that sacrifices for the good of the team, a player that has tremendous leadership, a player that gets that it's so much bigger than just wins and losses. Diane is the perfect example of that, and I think that's why that award means so much to everybody in our program, but she means so much to me personally and to our Michigan community.
Her skill set, experience, and commitment were really impactful and take us to where the Big Ten is today.
It's individuals like Diane who make the Big Ten special, and one day when there is a Mount Rushmore of the Big Ten, her face will definitely be on it.